All right, welcome everybody to episode 42 of the Daily BLP. I'm your host, as always, Brian Collins, and I am so happy you guys have decided to join us. There's a lot of places that you could be, and I'm just thankful that you chose to be here with me. So let's get rolling. So today's Friday, the 6th of June in the year of our Lord 2025. And let's do a little week in review, see what we got done this week, a little preview of the week ahead here at Panacea Smart Solutions, home of Panatech, Panaclicks, and PanaHealth. So we did an assessment earlier this week, really small assessment, but it was really cool. I think I might have talked about this briefly earlier in the week, but a small, local, fantastic little company here in Sheboygan that does HVAC, heating, cooling, residential, commercial, that kind of stuff. Met with the owner, sat down. He gave us, access to their network to do a network discovery and kind of assess what's going on so that we know what we're getting into when we help them here in the near future. And what we found is that their local server sitting on site at their office is lacking updates. It's got all kinds of errors. So a lot of red showed up when we got logged in. And we ran our network discovery tool on it and, looked into it and found out that they hadn't been backing up. They thought their backups were set to where they could just plug in a hard drive and unplug a hard drive, daily. Their routine was to do that at the end of every day. The co-owner of the business, her job is one of her jobs at the end of the day is doing just her only job. She does a lot more. But one of her things is it's her thing to unplug and plug the new one in. Well, if she's not there, she kind of has some of the leadership team do those things. And those don't always happen because we know how it is. Let's be honest. If it's not typically part of our routine that we do on an everyday basis, it's really easy to forget that. Still critical. But that's not even the problem. It can be a problem in that type of backup scenario. But the problem was that they'd just been doing this for years and years and years. Last time they had a real issue was in 2020. They got hacked and got locked up with ransomware. Everything was locked up. They had a good backup then in 2020. It was working. They took that backup, told the guys who locked them up to pound sand, threw all the old equipment away. Insurance bought them all new equipment. Trick is things have changed a lot since 2020 when it comes to insurance and how these things work. So on that side of backup, their backups we found haven't been running. They've just been failing every time. Now, we couldn't see all the way back to 2020, but we saw a timestamp that their last successful one was in 2020. And since then, they are their system is scheduled to run backups at 9 p.m. every night. It's been failing every time. So, they've been plugging relatively consistently. I'm plugging the old one and plugging in that days and then swapping, thinking everything's fine. If the things happened again, it's safe, right? Wasn't that bad of a situation that got hacked? No big deal. We got to get back up. Insurance will cover us. We're good to go. That's not the reality anymore. A lot's changed since 2020. The insurance industry has, they got their lunch eaten for a number of years based on their policies. They let those policies term, but the policies are new. So listen, small business people, medium business people, big business people, if you're just thinking that everything's hunky-dory with your cybersecurity policy and if someone hacks you and you just got your backup, you're going to be okay, be careful. Look at your policy. Make sure you know what's going on because insurance companies, these payers, because they were paying out so much because these hacks are so prevalent. I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but they are ridiculously common these days. So insurance payers were just paying out way too much because they weren't requiring the companies to comply with any certain types of measures to qualify for the policy. So things have changed. Look at your policy, look what the coverage is, look what the exceptions are. If you're just out there not really paying attention to your security, you think you may or may not have antivirus or Windows Defender or your whatever's okay, and you've got your backups, what's probably going to happen is when you go to have a claim, they're going to say, were you using secure password policies for every user? Were you using multi-factor authentication? Do you have a firewall? Is it up to date? All these different things. And if any of those things you can't check those boxes, they're not going to write you a check. So you got to be careful about those things. The other thing is, don't just think that because you're doing a certain thing, the thing is working. And when it comes to backups, you got to have something in place either on your staff or from your provider that gives you some sort of daily, weekly, or monthly recognition that your backups, A, worked, and B, can be recovered from. Because just because your backups ran and you got a green check mark that said, yep, successful backup, doesn't mean you're going to be able to take that data and reuse it when you need it, because it could be corrupted. Because nothing in the successful backup says that the data isn't corrupted or there's not an issue going on with anything in there. So anyway, what we found out is they hadn't been backing up. This was a big surprise to them, big issue. So we told them we can definitely, we can get in there, get that fixed up. They're not looking for a big managed service contract. That's okay. We can live with that. We send over a 10-hour block quote, and hopefully they purchase that block so we can get in there. We can get them fixed up pretty quick. There's other things that they need help with too, in order to make sure these kind of things don't happen again. So, but that was really good. I really hope we can help those guys. Super nice. Don't want to see anything bad happen to them. And, I was talking to my business partner, Joe, who kind of heads up the IT operations. He's like, man, we're getting a lot of these kind of hourly project kind of things. It's going to take away from what we can do for our managed service clients. I'm like, we can figure that out, but we can't just turn down people because they're not ready or they don't feel like a managed service contract is necessary to help them. It absolutely is if they want to get into a good spot, because it's just really hard to be proactive in the measure of in an hourly billable kind of situation. We can do it, but the fact is the bill is going to balloon quickly, because anytime we're doing something, scanning, testing, updating, all those kind of things, if we compile all that stuff and bill it out at the end of the month, we're going to be billing out more than we would have on a flat rate, monthly kind of retainer situation. So, and you don't want to ever get that big surprise that you didn't expect as a business owner. I don't like to get that expense. Usually those kind of expenses come from attorneys. So anyway, really hope we can help those guys. We had a presentation scheduled for Thursday. We're bringing folks in, going to feed them lunch and have a great meeting and find out if they wanted to be partners. But they had to reschedule. And that's disappointing to a degree, but that's okay. Because, the cool thing is that we've established, I think, enough trust and rapport in the process of discovery and assessment that they were willing to reach out to us, because we want the office manager there, we want the doctor there, anybody who kind of is involved in the decision-making process. The doctor is the owner in this case. And he reached out and said, hey, family emergency, can't make it. Can we reschedule? So that tells me he wants to sit down at the table. He wants to hear what we have to say. A lot of times a disappointing situation would be, hey, I'm just going to send my manager. You figure it out. You have no decision-making power. Come back and talk to me and then whatever, right? But it's good. So I'm okay with it. Gives us a little bit more time to polish the presentation and everything and the proposal. So it's okay. So next week, Wednesday, we'll be doing that. Other things from this week is Bob Gillespie, our caller over at Arsenal Business Growth, still doing a great job. Booked 2 more appointments this week. Congratulations, Bob. If I could hit that little button over there on my Roadcaster, I would have audience clapping. But good job, Bob, on that. That's fantastic. So one of them is with. This is it's 2 weeks out. One of them is with a local attorney firm, lawyer group, which is, I've heard of them. They have an MSP. They're not looking at all, but they're still willing to sit down. So I listened to the call. It didn't sound like he kind of, backed them into the corner. They've had a couple phone calls, and she's like, I really don't, I know we're not looking to change or anything, and he's like, that's okay. We just want to introduce ourselves. So if something happens or you need help in their stead, who we are and stuff. So I'm totally okay with that. And I like that I know going into it, I don't have any, expectations anything's going to happen. I'm going to meet with them. I'm going to talk to them about what they're doing, what they like, what they don't like. I'm going to give them an opportunity to say, hey, would it be a bad idea to even see what it costs to work with a company like us? Because I can send that to you right now. And I'll get them a quote, and we'll see we'll just have it. It'll be in their lap, and it'll make them at least think a little bit, especially if we come in at a better price than what they're paying right now. So anyway, for next week is going to be, we're gonna have that presentation, and I think that's really all that's really big on next week's agenda. Let me check real quick on the old calendar. Oh man, I can't believe we're gonna be flying through June. So nothing crazy there on Monday, Tuesday. We've got a follow-up appointment on Tuesday for MaxRev RCM, where we're meeting with a gentleman that Manny met with in Vegas and discussing revenue cycle management for a large cardio group. So that could be a big win. We sent them our BAA. They were reviewing it yesterday with their board, and if they're good with that BAA, they'll sign that BAA, and then we can start talking about setting up some pilots and trials and stuff like that. So that could be a really big win for the RCM service. Wednesday again is the presentation I just talked about, and then Thursday nothing big right now yet, and then Friday. Friday I'm going to be out of the office. Maybe I'll get a BLP in the morning, but taking my daughter, one of my daughters, turning 12, for her birthday party. So we're taking her and a bunch of friends up to Green Bay, home of the Packers, of course. But no, there's a neat place called Bay Beach up in Green Bay. It's a completely free park to go into. You just old school buy tickets at a booth, the little off the roll tickets, and like 50 cents a piece. They used to be a quarter, but thanks inflation. But at 50 cents a piece, you buy a bunch of tickets and you can go to whatever rides, and it's an awesome place. The only thing I wish that they could grow more and get more cool stuff to do, but it's a lot of fun. Even when it's busy, it's a lot of fun. So we're going to go up to Bay Beach with her and her friends, and they're going to have a good time. Happy birthday, Aria. Proud of you, girl, turning 12. Wow. All right, moving on into the next segment. What are we hitting on today when it comes to news? What's going on with the current pulse of the SMB market in the world here? So looks like, stocks index opened up pretty good today because of, looks like, recent, Twitter spat between Elon Musk and President Trump is cooling off a little bit. It's funny, and that cool off is, helping things rebound. Listen, again, I typically don't put any, money into conspiracy theories, but I will say this whole little, I don't like the big, beautiful bill. The big, beautiful bill is amazing. They're going back and forth talking about this. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't, and maybe they don't agree on it. I have a feeling this whole back and forth thing could be manufactured. I don't know. All I know is like one side of the political spectrum is all like, let's take advantage of this and pit them against each other and blah, blah, blah. And the other side is like, similar, but in a different direction. But end of the day, I think they're still getting on the phone and laughing and saying, look how we've got everybody just talking about this, even though there's nothing really there. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Who knows? But I know President Trump likes to be at the top of the news thing. And I know, I think strategically Elon might be kind of distancing himself a little bit to get a little boost to Tesla, because let's face it, the whole, let's hate Tesla because Elon likes Trump kind of thing. It's all stupid and contrived anyway. The whole reason everybody loved Tesla is they were supposedly helping the environment and making a good product, and this is going to save the world. So all of a sudden, because, like the top guy at Tesla likes a different political opponent, the cars aren't going to save the world anymore. I mean, that whole stupid thing they were doing, you could tell it was all fake and didn't make any sense anyway. They were just trying to, cause trouble. And, all of a sudden now, if Elon, let's say he's pretending to not like Trump anymore, now everybody's going to, love their Teslas again. I don't know. It's all a bunch of shenanigans. But anyway, apparently it's affecting the stock market because, people make decisions on that kind of junk. What else? Procter & Gamble is cutting 7,000 non-manufacturing jobs, about 15% of its global workforce over the next 2 years. Can anybody guess why that might be? Nobody? Nothing? I guarantee that's a reaction to AI. It's non-manufacturing jobs. And eventually it will. Eventually AI will affect even more manufacturing jobs too, as it improves what robotic kind of things can do. But if it's non-manufacturing job, if this is data entry type stuff, or even other trainable kind of skilled kind of things, if it's a process, if it's a job that's based on a process that someone learns to do and then does a lot of clicking and moving around of things on a screen, then I'm telling you, they're figuring out how to train these AIs to do it. We're working on some of this stuff. If we've got, for instance, 10 people and their job is to do job A, and there's a part of job A that takes up 80% of their time, and we can train an AI to do that, that means that we can take those 10 people and multiply their capacity to do that 20% work while we use the AI to do that 80% work. So we can get more work done with the same amount of people. So it doesn't always mean you're going to get rid of people. It means you can up the workload without affecting the quality, and in some ways improve the quality, because what we're finding on some of these things is the things that we're training AI to do are the things that are so mundane and so hypnotizing for people to do, that they tend to, at a certain point, kind of reach their eyeball capacity and their eyes start to cross, you start to wander off, and then you start to see errors happen at some point. If we can get more work done with less errors on those kind of things, that's going to be better for our clients. Hopefully our employees will see that it's going to allow them to do more of the things that are absolutely necessary for them to do, and less of the, really mundane pointing, clicking, moving, typing, pointing, clicking, moving, typing, that kind of stuff. So I don't know. We'll see. We're testing some of those things, and they seem to be right. The trick is we still got to take a person and put them in on whatever the script or the AI is doing, and making sure it doesn't miss anything. Because a lot of times with whether it's scripted software or AI, if you set it and forget it, down the road, the quality can degrade if there's a bug or something in there, and that can just blow everything up. All right. What else? Acquisitions. Vienna-based Newsroom.ai is acquiring trending topics to expand its foothold in the European tech media space. I don't know anything about any of those companies, but good for them. All right. Next topic of the day. Oh, yesterday was game 1 of the NBA Finals between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers. What a game. I'm disappointed in myself, sort of. I could have caught the best part of the game, but I didn't. It was a super busy day. I kind of alluded to that on the show yesterday. We had a full day of work, left, got home, got all my equipment for basketball practice and all my guitar and amp equipment for worship practice, loaded it into the truck, had baseball practice, went to worship. I didn't get home until after 9 because we're doing more songs than normal this time, and one of them's a new song, so we had to put a little bit more time in at rehearsal, which was a lot of fun. Just I was so stinking tired. By the time I got home, I hadn't even eaten dinner yet. By the time we'd eaten dinner, it was almost 10 o'clock anyway, so there was just no way that I was going to catch any meaningful part of that game, so I didn't even try. And man, do I wish I would have been able to watch that game. So I watched the highlights this morning, and it's about 13, 14 minutes of highlights. Go on YouTube and check out, NBA's highlights on there. They do a really good job. But it looked, by the end of the first quarter, OKC had like a 10, 11, 12 point lead or something like that. And Indiana kept trying to press up against it, get to like 6 points or 8 or 3 or 4, but OKC just kept pulling on. It looked at like at the end of the first quarter, they were going to be up by 10 they were going to add 10 more every quarter, and they'd be down by 40 by the end of the game. That, my friends, did not happen. So as tempted I was to just go to the end of the game, I'm watching through, and all of a sudden I notice out of halftime, they even show highlights of the third quarter. So the third quarter must have been, not even worth watching. But fourth quarter highlights, all of a sudden, going through, and they're, Indiana's just hanging on. They go by 10, they get back, and all of a sudden, last couple minutes, they're down by, what was it? They're down by 3 points. Big defensive play, come back, hit a 2-point shot. They're down by 1, I think 1 or 2 at that point. And there was 6 seconds left in the game. They inbound it, full court. Halliburton drains a 3 with 0.3 seconds left in the game. Now, somehow, OKC still managed to get a shot off that, could have definitely gone in, but they didn't. So after being down the whole game, Indiana pulls out a last-second shot by Tyrese Halliburton, and I'm telling you, it was the highlights, and I went nuts. I mean, I'm like you heard from me and Matt and me in the other shows that we're pulling for Indiana, and we don't have anything on it. We're not big Indiana fans, but it's fun to kind of pick a side. And when you got nothing in it, you could always switch sides if you want, whatevs. But we're pulling for Indiana, and they pulled out game 1 in OKC. So congratulations to the Indiana Pacers and Pacer fans. You guys are probably just on cloud 9 right now. Still got a tough road ahead, but to pull off game 1 in the finals away against the Thunder in their house when they don't lose at home, that's been a story with Indiana. I think before last night they were like 6-2 away or something in the playoffs. That's a recipe for a championship right there. So we'll see. I have a feeling OKC is going to come back and just storm and be probably relatively unstoppable tomorrow, but that's a big W for the Pacers. What do we got here? Some key performance. Looks like Pascal Siakam led the Pacers with 19 points and 10 rebounds. Toppin added 17 points off the bench. That's a big 17. Turner contributed 15. Halliburton and Andrew Nembhard each scored 14. So their major player, the guy who everybody's talking about, needed to be special, needed to be like super special in order for Indiana to even have a chance. Halliburton didn't even have a big game, but they had some big bench points, and Siakam had some great points too. So Gilgeous-Alexander delivered a game-high 38 points. So he was special. I mean, he was almost in every highlight, draining threes, getting to the rim, big game. But the other thing, I didn't think they had a chance. Indiana had a ton of turnovers. Like, you don't win games with turnovers. I don't care what sport it is. If it's a possession-based sport, you're turning the puck or the ball or whatever over, you generally don't have a chance. And the Thunder dominated early. They forced 19 first half turnovers. And they were leading by 15 points in the fourth quarter. But they outscored the Thunder 35-25 in the final quarter, and that's what you need to do to win. That final clutch shot, just capped everything off. He's a late game clutch dude. Yeah, you're talking about needing a special player. You got to need a special player they're not going to only hit big shots, but willing to take them no matter what. So they got him the ball, and he said, he probably said, "Get it to me, I want to take it," and he did. So again, it's just the beginning of the series. Doesn't mean anything. I still think it's an uphill battle for Indiana. I still think they're the underdogs, even taking game 1. Sunday night is the scheduled game 2 matchup. It's still in Oklahoma City. So Sunday night, I wish I could promise this. It's tough when you got a family, you got things going on, but I'm going to try to watch that one. All right. So last segment of the day, everybody, is, I was a little, man, I kind of, what could we do to talk about some personal growth kind of stuff? And what we came up with was having a growth mindset. And I think it even more so is a positive mental mindset or positive mental attitude. I think so much in life is predicated on what happens up here, right? I don't think we spend enough time early on in life teaching, talking about training people to control what happens in their brain. It can be really hard, right? Our untrained ability to control what we're capable of is not very good, right? So I remember years and years ago, the way it was explained to me was through a book called The Ant and the Elephant. It's your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And that whole book is predicated on picture your conscious mind, the thing you use to think, the thing you use to, get up and move around and do what you need to do and decide on what's next and all those things. The thing that you are in control of or you need to be in control of is an ant, is like the ant, your conscious mind. Your subconscious mind is like the elephant. So if you could close your eyes and mentally picture an elephant, if you've ever been to the zoo and actually stood up close to or seen an elephant in relation to the size of you, they are huge animals. Think of that and then think of an ant. So I would almost go as far as to say, but I've never seen one up close. I've only kind of seen models in museums. Think of like a blue whale and an ant. Your subconscious mind, when it comes to functionality and its size and capabilities, are billions of times larger than your conscious mind. But we don't have the direct ability to control our subconscious mind that we know of, right? But we do have a definite way to influence it. And one of those ways is we influence is by controlling our conscious mindset, right? The way we think, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we treat and talk to other people. It influences what happens in our subconscious mind. So for instance, I try to talk to my baseball players about this, or anybody I coach that's really struggling. And because what happens when you're young or undersized, or you don't have the strength or that you think you could to be as good as other people that are around you, you get down on yourself. It's really easy for a kid to do. And if you've got, let's say, parents or older people or peers kind of leaning in, you can do it, gosh, you suck, or all those kind of things. The more you hear either yourself saying those things or others saying those things, you start to believe those things. Even if you're fighting against it in your conscious mind, your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference, right? So one of the things I talk to my players about, especially like when they're batting or pitching or trying to do something consistently, accurately, in a quality way, is that, after 2 or 3 tries and not succeeding, they get down on themselves and they start to quit. The posture changes, the ability to control their body in a way to be successful starts to change. And I tell them a story about, I don't remember all the perfect details about the study done on basketball free throws. The fact that they took 2 groups of people and they had one group of people practice for a specific amount of time shooting free throws to try to get better at and affect their ability to make successful free throws. And they took another group and they put them in rooms and they had them close their eyes or however they do it and imagine that they were shooting free throws the right way with perfect form and making every shot. And I tell the guys, I go, your brain doesn't know the difference between you actually doing something and you imagining you're doing something. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference. Okay? That's one of the things in your conscious mind you have the ability to do. It's how you can influence, your subconscious mind. And so I tell them, I go, your brain doesn't know the difference. Your brain controlling everything, practicing, they say practice makes perfect, right? Or excellent or whatever. And they're like, yeah. Do you get to practice a lot? No, sorry, coach. I don't have anybody to play catch with at home. I don't have anybody to pitch to me and hit with at home. I don't have anybody to, hit me fly balls. I don't have anybody to hit me grounders. I don't have anybody to, do any of these things that you work with us in at practice to help me get better. And they're thinking I only get so better because I only get so many pitches in the cage, or I only get so many chances to bat, or so many balls hit to me at practice, and I get better, but not enough. This is what they've experienced. And I've got players on my team that have been playing baseball for 8 years. They don't have any type of handicaps physically or mentally that I know of. They are relatively physically fit. They don't have anything besides maybe home life that is a struggle, that's a challenge. But they've been told, because of their limited practice and game performance, either practice results or game performance opportunities, they've convinced themselves that they're just not very good. Because by coaches not playing them, because they're not very good in practice, they don't get a chance to get better in those situations. And coaches are convinced they're not very good. And if you don't play, you get convinced that you're not very good. And then 8 years down the road, you're sub-mediocre at a game you've been playing long enough to technically have mastered it to some degree. Maybe you don't have that 10,000 hours in, because you've never been taught that you have an ability to influence your skill level, even though you can't get out on a field with a bunch of people and play, or even one other person to do things. I didn't know this as a kid either. I didn't know this until I got older. But it makes a difference when you sit there. You can lay in bed, close your eyes, and pretend you're hitting a ball, getting pitched to. Different types of pitches, what those look like, and how you're going to hit them and how you're going to swing. And you have the ability in your imagination to focus in on a part of your body. Your coach says you need to change how you hold the bat. You need to change how you pivot. You need to, all those kind of things. But we're not really taught those things. A lot of times it's not the coach's fault. They don't know those things either, because they've never been taught those things. I wouldn't know those things if I wouldn't have ran across it a few years ago. But I tell my guys, your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. So if you can learn how to control the way you think in your head using your imagination, you can influence results. You can influence your ability to do things better. So whether if that's in the workplace, when you got to make a bunch of calls, if you tell yourself you got 30 minutes driving to work, you're in traffic, you tell yourself, I hate my job. All I do is sit there and make 100 calls a day. It sucks. No one answers the phone. Everybody says no. I suck at this. I just got to get through it, get my paycheck, and go. You're only going to be doing that for so long. You're not going to be successful. You're either going to quit or sabotage it or get fired, right? But if you can learn to tell yourself a different story over and over and over and over again, you can absolutely get better. If you can start to pay attention to the little things that are causing you to not get good results, change those things, start to build over things with little wins. A little win could just be not getting hung up on when somebody answers consistently. I made 100 calls today, 10 people answered, nobody hung up on me. Even though I could tell they didn't want to talk to me. They didn't be like, because I changed the way I handled those calls. And then down the road, okay, how am I going to get people to engage with me for more than 2 minutes? How am I going to get that up to maybe 4 or 5 minutes? Because if I can get them to there, I know they don't hate me. And now I'm in a position where I can influence them at least to consider what I have. All these little things, right? All these things can be done by running through the scenarios in your head. You know how people talk to you on the phone. I'm just using this as an example. You know how people, if you're a salesperson, you know how people do these kind of things. I'm not saying this is easy to overcome, but this is how you do it. Some people do this and they don't even know it. Some people just have that personality. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to plow through and figure this thing out personality. Some people don't. And that those things have to be trained, and they absolutely can be trained. To say that's just not who I am is to submit to who you are now, getting you the results that is going to get you. So not that there's anything wrong with who any of us are naturally, but if we want unnatural results, we have to figure out a way to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations, to do uncomfortable things, legally, morally, and ethically, to get us unnatural results. That's just how it is. And these are all things that I could be doing much better as well. I struggle with the same kind of stuff, even though I know how to overcome things. It's funny. Another thing I told my kids the other day, and this was built on, not to get too into kind of my personal, beliefs and stuff like that. But at church, one of the things was, being bold and getting out there and stuff and doing what the Bible actually says to do. Just reading it and, being able to quote scripture is not, really following what we're supposed to be doing. Something I need to work on, right? But long story short, I told my kids, because we were talking about something at the dinner table. I said, just because you know something doesn't mean you know it. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, because to know and not to do is not to really know, right? So if you know how to do the dishes properly, right? You know it, but you go in there and you do the dishes halfway, then you don't really know what you're doing, right? You're not, if you know what to do and you're not willing to do the things right, then you really don't know. And it applies to a lot of things. So anyway, now you have no excuse. There's a lot of good things out there to go and learn and read. Shoot me messages in the comments if you want some suggestions on where to start. This journey started for me 14 years ago. And I was just like everybody else, kind of just going through life, same old story, meaningless, all that kind of stuff. And then little things happened here and there, and things changed for me dramatically. Some of those things that happened were big life events that I thought were devastating. And if it wasn't for some of the things that I had learned shortly before, a year or two before that, I probably might not have made it out of those things. So between the people I've met, and learned from some of the books that I've read and some of the knowledge that I've applied. And I'm by no means a shining example of I've arrived. I have not, for sure, arrived anywhere all that special. But I am blessed and I'm fortunate. And it's because there's been instances where I've gained knowledge and I've applied it, and it through hard situations. So anyway, enough about that. That was fun. Hopefully you guys found that profitable to some degree. Really happy to be with here for you guys today in the show. It's the end of the week. I'm going to wrap things up here with episode 42 of the Daily BLP. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We will see you hopefully next week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.